Welcome to Connected Conversations. I'm really grateful that you're here and sharing your time. If you like the conversation that you hear, please like it and share. I'm Emma from Unique Phoenix. I'm a soul coach, energy healer, well-being guide, and an unapologetic, curious soul. Connected Conversations is here to bring love, healing, and connection to our everyday lives through open and authentic conversations. Every single conversation, I'm privileged to interview women and men in our communities that are here being their authentic selves, sharing their unique talents with the world around them. I'm going to let them introduce themselves, and then we can get to know them and what they offer much better.
Hi, I'm Fay, and I'll work with adults and children to move unshakable anxieties that seemingly stick around all the time, right? And I use the modality of EFT tapping to help resolve that angst, move it out of your body so that you're left clear and able to move on with freedom. So that's what I do.
Welcome everyone to Connected Conversations. They are here to bring healing, love and connection to our everyday lives through open and very authentic conversations. And today I'm sharing time with Fay Chan, who is an EFT practitioner, amazing, who is passionate about each client finding calm, clarity and confidence through the power of EFT healing and tapping. Thank you so much for sharing your time and energy and beautiful modality with us and me today. I cannot wait to dive in because I'm such a curious little creature, and this is really what Connected Conversations came from, is my curiosities in the world. Yeah. So I can't wait to share with everyone the modality of EFT, because I find more and more, I've been in natural therapies for a long time through my own healing. So I talk about stuff like it's, like it's bread, like it just is.
It's so normal, yeah.
Yeah, but a lot of people, I even spoke to someone recently about chiropractic work, and they were like, I don't really know that one. And I thought, wow. So I love bringing these modalities out and just knowing how much skill you have in it. I can't wait to dive into that side of it because that's amazing. However, I want to start with your background, because it's not it's not EFT tapping.
No, it wasn't. It was budgeting. It was helping households with budgeting, managing ins and outs, right? And I always came from the context of it's transformational. When you see your numbers and the facts for what it is and what it isn't, that will transform you, and you'll be able to know what actions to take, what actions not to take. Because then the noise, the confusion, the meaning, the angst is out of it. You're just dealing with facts. Yeah. And that's really powerful, right?
Yeah.
However, whenever I talk to people about budgeting and household income, what they've got, what they haven't got, how much savings they've got, what their plans are, how much super, etc., etc. Or even right now, you might be feeling a bit triggered yourself. And so that's what I dealt with instead of the strategy. I dealt with people grip, they're completely paralyzed. And as much as they said, oh my gosh, it's such a service that we need, right? It was hard to get clients, like terrifically hard to get clients, because it was the angst I was dealing with, not the strategy. Because the strategy is easy. A grade 6 can tell you how to budget. It's not rocket science. It literally isn't. So I changed tact, because I came from a finance background and a coaching background. So that was a great marriage of the two when I worked in a budgeting company. But then I worked for myself when I became a mum, and I didn't want to go back to work.
Or working for someone else, because you're a mum and working, so you're doing double time jobs. I just want to be clear on that.
Yeah.
I don't want to be clear.
No. So, when I started that, it was great because it was well received. It was such a needed conversation. but it was really hard to get clients because people needed to get over themselves to even see me. So I changed tact from the strategic pipeline to the emotional pipeline using EFT tapping, right? Because I'm from a coaching background way back from 2004 days, 2004, 2005, and I've got a spiritual training behind me too.
Okay, hang on, I just want to put a pin in that for a second because what's the spiritual background? Tell me about that.
So I'm a trans-trained healer.
What's that?
I don't, let's just say that I can move things that are in your energy sphere that's there impacting you from a quantum point of view, from past lives point of view, right? Relationships that seem to hang on, that impact this lifetime. I can sense that and move that.
Yeah.
Right. So that's my spiritual background there. Okay. And then my coaching background came from me being immersed in landmark education ever since 2005. And I was a staff member there as well. So the languaging of personal development comes really natural to me. I don't speak like this normally just because I've done several tapping courses, a few exams, and my practicals.
Yeah.
Right? I am not a good practitioner just because I did tapping. It's because I've got that background there since 2005.
I don't want to discredit anyone because I think you and I are kind of in a similar age. Well, I'm in my 40s, mid-40s. Okay, right, so we're in a similar. And I don't want to discredit any beautiful, amazing young people coming up in the world, absolutely. No. But I think there is something really powerful with women in, stepping into their 40s now because there's this experience that sits behind it, and like this, gathering of, how many things have we gathered over the years? How many things have you gathered over the years? So it's not just about, it's the same as if I'm doing Reiki healing. For me, what came out of it is that I can do ancestral and past life healing. Yep. And I've done interdimensional. Do you know where that came from? But it's just, when I'm channeling. So, I get that side of it. Like it's that experience, that weight.
Yeah.
It's underneath it. It's not just about being trained in this.
Correct. Yeah. So with the trans-trained healing, I don't share that often. But if it does come up in a session, I'll use it immediately. So the scripting changes as I'm tapping. And usually it works on a dime very quickly. And so the clients is coming with me on a ride, basically. And at the end of it, they're like, what just happened? That was amazing. What was that you just did? Oh my gosh, that just makes so much sense, right? So, but I don't on the forefront say that I do that because it's not something that a lot of people will get. Even those that are spiritual may not get it. So that's why I don't share it up front. And I am a clinical EFT tapping practitioner. So that's what I do, and that's what I use majority of the time. And if other things turn up, I'll do it. I've done quantum EFT. Yeah, I've got my landmark background, so in terms of listening for words, the intuitive, all that training there that I've had in their programs, in the relationship programs, and being a staff member there, right? It says right there in who I am. So
yeah, I think when you've spent so long in personal development, whether it's self or other, yeah, there is a way that you just speak. There's a view that you have on the world and into people because you've had it into yourself.
Yeah, exactly. So you can't move that because you needed to move that for yourself to even be in that space, or for me to generate that space and be the producer of that space in the work when I worked for the personal development company, right? Just because you're a consumer doesn't mean you can produce it. Right? Different. So people who do multiple thousands of courses and then go, they can produce it, different mindset, different game. So being a consumer of it, being trained to lead it, and then being trained to work in it to produce it, it's very different, right? And so that was really the training ground for me to be an entrepreneur, because I was petrified going into work every single day because it was such a training ground for me. I needed to bankrupt my personality, the way I would make things work in a survival mode, in order to produce work that was inside of possibility and inside of what's possible for other people, right? So I couldn't use what I know to produce and work in the outside world to use it internally at that personal development company. So that's why I was petrified, because I knew parts of me would die on a daily basis if I were to be there producing the work.
Oh, but that's personal. That's actually doing internal work. I mean, you would experience it with clients. I experience it with clients. There is a death that takes place consistently of personality, of ego, and there is a grief process that you need to go through at times because like some of what you're letting go of is you've held on to it for so fucking long that it's such a truth, and suddenly when it's not, you're like, well, I don't know what to do.
Yeah, exactly. And the thing was, I was on the hook, because then I had to produce the results for KPIs, right? So it was constant accountability. So you needed to just transform yourself on a dime, and you needed to be used to that and complete the conversations, because even though you might do it for yourself, I do say with clients, go pick up the phone and change and complete it with that person that you've got this particular memory or angst with. Pick up the phone, right? And so we needed to do that on a dime. And so, like, till today, I do. If there's something that's not there, I'll pick up the phone. And those sort of are the hardest conversation, and it's even beyond dealing with yourself.
Oh, yeah, I agree.
Yourself, that's up to 99%. But what seals that 1% is that conversation. And to reach 99% to 100% is a whole lot.
Agree.
Right. So, yeah, and that's the background I come from. So that's why that I can really hold the space for clients when they're dealing with crap and stuff that comes up with them, be it it's decades worth of secrets, ailments that come up, seemingly normal memories, but they just happen to be traumatic. So, and the body remembers, right? So
always
you have to hold the space for them whilst they go through that in a tapping session.
There's a couple of things that have come up for me, and I'm going to come back to it soon, because there was something I heard this morning, right? And they were talking about what if you just chose, because you just talked about body memory, right? So they were talking about what if you just decided that whatever thoughts are in your head, everything was new, just everything was new. And what that set off in me was, your body's going to have memory. So even if you decide for your brain, like, I'm just going to decide it's all new. I want to ask how that lands for you, because that was the premise of what they were saying. What if you just woke up today and decided you'd never seen this world before, you'd never walked into it, you had no idea about it, and you just were stepping into it? And that's how you approached it.
Well, without accountability, that's impossible. So what I say...
Oh, no, I'm not saying you were saying without accountability, but he's saying if you just step into each moment as a new experience.
No, because your body embodies every single thing.
So including that's what came up for me, yeah.
Some people that have experiences from the womb, or being left in NICU and in a little incubator. They have no language, they have no perception of anything, but they're left in the incubator, but the body remembers being alone, or someone's not coming, or something's missing. The body remembers. I've worked with clients and little kids that remember that. They know how to articulate it now, right? But they can't remember the actual visual or the scene in their mind's eye, but they remember the sensation. So the body is just absorbing and like a sponge. And so if you were to go consider that you're stepping newly into this particular opinion or this particular possibility, right? And unless you're immersed in a room full of individuals inquiring at the same time, so the energy's pulling for it, that's what I mean by accountability. or in a coaching conversation where you're being held accountable for what it is. Like you'll say something and the coach will go, no, that's from the past. No past, next. You say something else, no past, that's from the past, next, right? And it's hard to then deal with it in your own head, mind, and world, because there's no way you can see the trees in the forest. There just isn't.
Look, and I absolutely 100% agree with you. And it was interesting because I thought, I think that's a really simple approach and not considering past trauma, because your body does remember. I mean, I myself have moved through some pretty, some pretty heavy stuff, and I didn't remember, and I still don't. Thank you, dear brain god, whatever. So, but my body remembers.
Yes.
And my body has reactions and responses that my brain was like, WTF, what the fuck's going on here? I can't even figure out what is going on. Like, that's literally some of the experiences that I've had, that I would sit there paralyzed going, what is going on? Like, I don't even understand what this response is. So having to go in and do that work. But it was interesting. I heard that today and I thought, that's really good for me to bring up today, and it's going to come up if it needs to. I didn't write it down, but because I think that's a really very simple approach and doesn't account for the fact that, people have trauma come up in their lives.
Yeah.
My next one that I wanted to move into is, because I know there's a lot of popular stuff going on around psychology and how people hold stuff, and when we're talking about teenagers and young kids, I hear it a lot in my own work, and I just want to have a conversation about it because I'm really curious for your view. Trauma is becoming popular. And everything is becoming a trauma. And I'm not trying to minimize that stuff happens to people and how it's held. Please don't understand. I'm not trying to say it isn't, but I almost think, and I know that trauma is different for everybody, but I almost feel like people are going into experiences and deciding immediately, this has been a trauma for me.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Using it as a throwaway term.
Yeah, that was traumatic. No, that was probably a bit disturbing and like a bit more. I was described a moment from a beautiful teen the other day, and I actually stopped them and said, no, that was probably not a trauma, mate. It was probably more of a, did that just fucking happen moment? Like, did I see that? Like, that's a bit disturbing that happens in the world. So I'm like, because as you're talking about it, where does that come up in your body? And they're like, oh, it doesn't. I don't have any feeling. And I said, so that's actually not a trauma. You can create them in your mind 100%, but it's actually not one that's, like put a layer over your soul. That's how I describe it to clients. If you put a layer over your soul, over your heart, then that's, whoa, we've got to remove that. But if it's sitting in your brain, very clever, but that can easily be bypassed.
Yeah, I mean, in the last 2 years especially, people have used a lot of throwaway terms to describe certain things. And it's very throwaway. Then it becomes the meaning behind the word becomes minimized and diluted.
I feel like that's what's happening with actual real, and I'm not trying to put like here, this is a real trauma and this is not, but we kind of need to. We kind of need to put some common sense around this to say it has been traumatic for kids to be at a distance. However, what's the trauma that's been held in the body? Like, let's deal with that. Does that make sense? Rather than, I know it's been traumatic for everybody in some way, but is it actually a held trauma in the body? Or is it an energetic one that keeps being absorbed because of what's happening in the world?
Yeah, because trauma is experiential. It's not a description. It really isn't. It's not an opinion. It's not even anger and passion, right? Trauma is actually experiential. And it'll mean that you feel completely paralyzed. It's a familiar pang, or the ailment runs from one place to another. And no matter which physio, chiro, osteo, whoever you see, it can't be moved. And that physical ailment keeps turning up or keeps running from shoulder to elbow to shoulder to your pecs. Then that's emotional trauma, right? And so it is very experiential and it's very triggered. And so if you go around just being angry, sure, we can use the anger as the tip of the iceberg to deep dive into what the trauma might be underneath that. But that's still, they need to be willing to do the work to get to the source of it, be it traumatic or not, right? But people aren't willing to do that. They just want to use the throwaway word to back an opinion to use as reason. So that there's that part, and then there's it's the experiential part of trauma, right?
Thank you. I absolutely 100% agree with you. It's almost like the term being used, I identify with. My God, that's freaking me out at the moment in there, because again, it's becoming a popular thing. I heard someone say to me recently, I identify as a drug addict, and I was like, whoa. And I went, whoa, I think we've actually gone too far with this. Things are becoming trends. And, you know, I actually said to someone, as adults, we're not being responsible for what we're raising at the moment. We're not putting our common sense in. We're just kind of floating along with these ideas, same as, it was really traumatic for them. Ooh, they fell off their horse. I'm sure that was pretty awful, but I don't know if I'd put it into...
Yeah, unless they were scared to get into an SUV because of a certain height.
Oh, look,
and then you know it's traumatic, but you need the evidence to support the statement that it's traumatic.
Look, I know someone that's actually had a really serious horse accident, and it wasn't necessarily the accident that occurred, it was what everything else happened afterwards. But everything was attached to that particular event. So once we unpacked, hang on a minute, it's actually the aftermath and the lack of trust and the loss of, you know, trusting self. That's a very different... I'm glad we had that conversation, because I think that's really important that we, as really powerful women, are willing to have conversations like this.
Yeah.
Yeah, and actually putting out there so that people can hear. It's okay to call people on that. It's okay to say, whoa, let's have a chat about what was traumatic about that. I heard a teen talk about going shopping and not getting a pair of shoes traumatic. I went, no.
That's not traumatic. You just didn't get what you wanted. That's all.
Yeah. Or, you know, I've worked with someone that I called him on a behaviour, and I said, I think you need to do this, this. And he came back on the next session and basically said to me, that was really traumatic. No, it wasn't. I just called you on your shit and you didn't like it.
Correct.
And he's like, oh, all right. I'm not here to feed your ego. I'm actually here to dissect it.
Yeah, exactly.
So
it's traumatic now, is it? Okay.
Yeah. But I think that's the thing, like there's all these little catchphrases. And so to me, trauma, and I identify with, I think unfortunately this gender identity stuff is really like, you know, and as adults, there's many adults out there fueling it as a truth in the world, rather than just allowing kids to be kids and allowing them to be confused and allowing them to explore and, you know, like just allowing them to be kids and actually saying, no, you're not making a decision on this. You don't need to. You don't have a brain for it until you're 25.
Exactly. Yeah.
So does stuff like that come up with you, like when you get kids that, you know, just have a sense of confusion about the world, and how is that manifesting? Can you...
Not really confusion. I usually work with kids with a lot of separation and sleep anxieties.
Okay.
And then plus other types of angst that comes into it, anger, tantrums, calling names, things like that. But a lot of it, let me see, with the sleep anxieties, majority of it traces back to technology. There's a few that's been traced back to them seeing darker than dark beings in the darkness that scare them. There's a few that's about, you know, oh gosh, you know, there's someone hiding behind the bed or someone hiding behind the cupboards. It starts to play on imagination. But if I look back and trace it back, a lot of it's got to do with what they see on technology on YouTube. And so I've learned about characters on YouTube that I never knew about. I mean, my son does watch YouTube every now and then. But then he never came to me and said, oh, Mummy, I don't like Knock Knock, or I don't like Huggy Wuggy, or I don't like Siren Head, or there's a multitude of others. And I go, what? Who? And so as I'm tapping with these 5 and 6-year-olds, that I'm learning, they go, oh, Huggy Wuggy, he goes to factories and takes souls out of dolls or something. I'm like, oh, what? Okay, let's just write that down. Let's just tap that out. So they're very matter of fact, right? Kids are very matter of fact. So I get a lot of information from them, which is great. And it's information that I can use for themselves, but it's there in the subconscious, playing like it's real life, impacting their sleep patterns.
Yeah, look, I must admit, I had that with my daughter, and I actually just said to her, what are you watching show me what you're watching, show me what you're absorbing. And then we went through it, and I said, this is not for you, like, this is not okay, not for you. And we went through it and was able to go, right, this is where some of the attitude and stuff's coming from. And again, I had to take accountability as a parent and go, we need to cut that time out. Like, it's too much on it. There's other things you could be doing, and step into that kind of parenting role. So I do want to get a bit down into it, because obviously you're still in accounting, you're doing all that stuff. What made you shift into tapping? Like, I know you kind of just said a beautiful way of describing it before, but what made you move into it?
Okay, so I've got my coaching background, my spiritual background. The trainer that I trained under for EFT tapping, I've known since my personal development days, because I met her doing one of the courses at Landmark. So I've known about tapping for a very long time. And I also have been a client of hers, right? And all my personal development work. So I've known about tapping for a very long time. And then I got into, I worked at a national finance company on budgeting. So I did that, got pregnant, came out and didn't want to go back to a job. So I did my own budgeting, but more like coaching basis for household budgeting. Okay. But what was the event that had me go, that's it, I'm doing tapping? Was I had this one lady that I met, the same lady that I met at 2 networking events. She kept on coming up to me to say, Faye, I really need your help, the budgeting help. I'm like, okay, cool, sign up and I can go through this with you and da-da-da-da. So that was at the first meeting. Second meeting, she did the same thing. I'm like, this woman wants help, but like something's stopping her, right? And I go, great, you can, I can give you a call, let's sign up, let's do this.
Yeah.
And on that day, there was a tapping practitioner giving a talk. And then I found out that this particular inquiring person had already done 2 or 3 sessions with a tapping practitioner. Okay. And I'm going, what is it about that she'll do, but not about money that she'll do? Right. And I sat there and I'm going, and I was because of my background, my training, I was really confident that I can work with her with emotional angst quite easily. I'm going, then why would she see the tapping practitioner but not have me move the money mindset with her to do the budgeting? So when I'm in the wrong pipeline, I'm talking to people that want help but can't afford the help. I'm talking to people that want help but can't get over themselves. They're so gripped and strangulated from taking action. And it's like I'm barking up the wrong tree. And the tree that's always presented to me is the emotional tree. So it was on that day, I just went, nah, I'm doing this. Went home that night, told my husband that I said, I think I'll just qualify as an EFT tapping practitioner. He goes, okay, go ahead. Rang the trainer, Jenny. I said, Jenny, when's the next course? She goes, November. Great, I'm there. Done. And so that was November 2018. In 2019, I transitioned from budgeting across to tapping fully. And then 2020, the floodgates opened. It was perfect. And then now I've been recommended as a mentor to mentor certifying students coming through EFT Universe. So I'm in the process of talking to the people in America as to how that will work for my timing and things like that, because now that's the next stage for me. I'm mentoring students coming through the system to be practitioners, as well as tapping, right? So I would never, one-on-one tapping is my favorite. That will still be my bread and butter.
Yeah, I don't know that I could ever not do healing, but I love I love all the facets of my business. All right, so then I want to understand. I love what you said about bankrupt your personality. God, that actually, like, it just rings so true, and people need to know that in any personal development work that they're doing.
Yeah.
You're
They're not
going
willing to give it up. They're not
You have to
willing
give
to give up. Even should I bring this topic up? Even currently what's happening, even though people are really forgetful about the last 2 years,
Oh, yeah.
right? And the fact and how the science moves so much with the different variants.
With yes,
What was that? Oh yeah, they're not willing to bankrupt that part of the personality that's been anchored through the fear.
yeah,
Right? It's such a huge trunk now that they, for dear life, they have to hang on because they can't admit that they've been fooled somehow the last 2 years. So now, be it that, you know, I don't have, in fact, I feel a depth of sadness and compassion for those that needed to do what they needed to do to keep food, keep the mortgage paid and everything else. It's like, it's not about that. It's really about knowing. I mean, there's people that I know that needed to be triple boosted to keep their jobs,
yeah,
but they're completely on the other side of the fence where they know all this is just bollocks. But they needed to do what they needed to do to make sure that the bottom of that Maslow triangle is taken care of. The bills paid, the mortgage paid, they've got food, right? The children are clothed, they're at school. I get that, right? And then there's secondary benefits here that people won't let go of. As in, and that's something inside tapping as well, because we're looking for that. It's called secondary benefits, where we're looking at, you're tapping on certain things, but there's certain aspects of it that you're not willing to let go of.
Yep.
Because you're getting a benefit out of that, right? Such as people on benefits from the government. They might be doing something that will mean they need to let this go, the benefits go, and trust that this will transpire and facilitate something bigger, but they're not willing to let this go because they're getting a secondary benefit from it, the consistent, regular fortnightly income, right? And that's what keeps them where they are. And yet if they come into me for growth, for visibility, for mindset, for changes in themselves and their entrepreneurship or whatever it is, I can't move that if they're not willing to acknowledge this and what they're gripping onto. Is what we call secondary benefit.
Yeah.
Right? So, and so for some people, that with regards to the last 2 years, there's some secondary benefits to keep holding on to these particular opinions. And what people like myself and yourself have done beyond the last 2 years is to keep dealing with that, to let it go. Because the more you let it go, the more you're willing to break that apart, the easier the next layer gets, really.
Well, there's more depth there and more juiciness and more richness in that layer as well. But look, I definitely agree with you. I describe it to clients as handing over trust, because that's what I deal with clients. Essentially, that's, the foundation of my work is building, deep self-trust within them. So, we hand over trust, and that's what you're talking about is exactly that. They just want to hand over this level of responsibility and trust to somebody else, because then they don't actually have to trust themselves fully. They can continue to externalize, well, that's not working. Oh, I don't like that. And it's easy to be in that state of complaint, because if you go into a state of desire, there's amazing stuff in there, but that's scary because you're going to make choices that are like, what?
Exactly. So there is a cost benefit analysis here, right? Where it has to be considered in the same breath. You can't just look at the cost and concentrate on that. You got to look at, the benefits and concentrate on that. You look at the cost and have it be considered as a whole.
Yeah.
And sometimes you need to do without the benefits because the cost is too costly. Right.
Look, absolutely. And people, you can only meet people where they're at and take little baby steps forward and allow them to let go. I mean, I couldn't have let go of everything all at once. Jesus Christ. I would have been a puddle on the floor, I think.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, that's a hot little mess that I wasn't willing to be. I have been a hot little mess. I'm not going to, move away from that aspect of, moving through your personal development. But yeah, look, I absolutely agree with you. I think in the past 2 years for me, what it has highlighted is how much people don't trust themselves and also how much awareness they don't have of it.
Yeah.
They just believe they fully trust. Yeah. Well, oh my God, it's so brave to go, you know what, I'm really handing it over to other people all the time in relationships, in work relationships, in, what we're talking about right now to our governments and, like people. I know I've definitely been that person. I'm not even absolutely hand up. I've handed it all over and then slowly had to pull it all back in a minute.
Because the status quo is always easier. Like status quo is always easier to manage, like in terms of angst, in terms of the ignorance is bliss. People just like to keep status quo. Well, and that's why the last 2 years are so easily forgotten, because the status quo is returning, right?
Yeah, but in that we've had higher levels of anxiety, and even now we're still at one of the highest levels of anxiety that we've ever had. So as much as we're turning back to normal, there is something within people. I call it a body wisdom. There's something within people that they're going, oh, it doesn't feel right. But again, all these layers over everything, but I've got to fit in.
And then always takes one thing, that one trigger, the next pandemic, the next lockdown, the next whatever it is, that then I can't imagine the eruption of anxiety. Like we've got what we call the anxiety pandemic already. I don't know what the eruption will look like.
Yeah, I'm with you there. There is something within me that says, I'm grateful that a lot of light workers have stepped up. I'm grateful for you and I doing the work that we do, because there we are holding space and being able to hold truth for people. So, that's a really beautiful place to be when that occurs. I don't know about you, but I definitely went through my own little eruption probably in the first year, and then thought, right, okay, I've hit my peak and now we're on the other side of it. Let's see what that looks what the next year looks like. But I don't know that everyone has reached their peak, to be honest. I really don't. I don't know that we've had I don't think we've had the mass of people hit a tipping point as yet. So you're right. I wonder what that's going to look like. So tell me then, I want to get into sort of more the nitty-gritty of EFT to help people understand what it actually does. So how does it work on the mind and the body? Because we're talking about releasing, but I want to get a bit technical now.
All right.
Yeah.
So we use our fingertips to pulse on end meridian points. Okay. And these points, there's an algorithm of it called the simple basic recipe. Okay. And it pretty much sweeps the body of all the major organs. Now, what happens with acupuncture points, right, is that instead of needles going in to your point, we're using the pulsing, therefore tapping.
Okay, got it.
Right?
Yeah.
So it works the same way. So we're alleviating, we're decharging, we're relaxing, and the body's detoxing. And that's why we say like cupping, right? There's some places where it's blocked, it's more bruised in appearance, and then there's some places that are not. So those areas that are, it's literally the lymph liquid that's underneath that's being stuck, that's being moved by the cupping, right? And so inside the movement of the energy or the chi, you're detoxing at the same time. So that's what acupuncture points do. It helps you detox, discharge, decharge, and relax. So whilst we're tapping, that's happening physically to your body.
Yeah.
Right? So you're relaxing. And you might even yawn, because that's your nervous system relaxing and trusting. Okay. Now, the talking part is based on cognitive behavioral therapy and exposure therapy.
Okay, talk me through it, because I know what that means. Actually, I just want to go back a little bit, right? Because if someone's never heard of this before, right,
Yep.
they're going to be like, what the fuck is chi? Right? Like, I'm with you. I'm there with your sister. I'm like, I know cupping and I love that stuff, right? I'm in it. The more bruising I have in cupping, the more I'm like, bring it on. You know?
Yep. I mean, I grew up with it. This was normal. It never needed to be described to me. It was just what we did.
Well, I grew up, instead of seeing a GP, unless I had an infection, like a, whatever, I would see a naturopath.
Yeah.
So to me, that was just normal, or getting sent to a physio or whatever. That was just normal to me to go and do that stuff. However, so to look for it in my life and to go off and to find acupuncturists and find all this stuff, it just seemed like another progression. But for many and for most, I want to say it's not the normal thing that they would do. I still say to people about going to a naturopath, and they'll say, what is that? So I want to go back in a little bit of time. You said simple, basic recipe. Can you help me understand that a little bit more?
So what I'm doing now, we always start on the psychological reversal point called the karate chop point.
Yes, the karate chop point's my favourite.
So we always start here, and we start off with statements like, even though I'm feeling anxious in my heart center, I'm okay and I'm safe. So the premise of tapping is always about acceptance. The fundamental of it is about acceptance.
Got it.
How you accept something is to bring it up. Even though I feel anxious, even though I'm jealous of my husband, even though I've got $0 in my account, even though I'm so scared to put myself out there and I'm scared to be visible, I'm safe and I'm okay. The I'm safe and I'm okay part at the end, the affirming reverses it, right? And that's why, so that there's some practitioners that are not certified that start here and go there. It's like, no, here.
Yeah.
Right. So this is clinical EFT, and it's the reason it's called clinical is because there's been white papers and studies and trials done on this particular method. Yeah. And so we always start here. We go up to the top, the crown, and then to where the eyebrow meets the forehead, and then to the side of the eye, and then under the eye where the bony bit is, and it meets the pupil, under the pupil, and then under your nose, the chin where the crease is, the collarbone point just underneath that. It's called the sore spot. Yeah, but there's plenty of points around here anyway, including your thymus. And then there's the underarm point, which is 10 centimeters under your underarm.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that one.
Yeah. And so that's the simple basic recipe. So that's the normal algorithm that most practitioners use all the time. There's other ones, there's other tapping points that we can bring in. There's a eye exercise as well, but that's when the anxiety or the emotions really high. That's when we bring that in. Yeah. But otherwise, this is pretty much it.
Yeah.
Right. And the speaking part is to bring it up, is the coaching aspect, is the scripting of it.
So you used the term before. What was the term you used before? Cognitive
behavioral therapy.
Thank you. Yeah.
And exposure therapy.
Yes. Yeah.
It's to expose. Like if someone's afraid of snakes, I'll bring up a picture of a snake and trigger the reaction.
Yeah.
Or where is it in your body? How does it feel right now? Can you breathe? Can you not breathe? What are you thinking? Right? And so it's to trigger, because we want to appease that. So when it triggers, it might fire off at an 8 out of 10. You're like, crap, get me out of here. Right? And the tapping, we aim to bring that down to 1 to a 0. So if you're self-tapping to regulate, and you maybe not encounter a snake, because that would just you'll just be overtaken.
You're not going to stop and tap, where are you? No.
Maybe
if you take yourself to a zoo and stand and look at one, that might.
Yeah, you might just do this and just look at it whilst you're being triggered, and then afterwards you go back to the window. You're like, oh, I'm okay now. That's so weird. So tapping's great as a tool to self-regulate. Definitely. but I wouldn't recommend unhooking your memories and uninstalling the anchors yourself. It doesn't quite work. Right?
No, yeah, I agree with you.
Yeah, because one is you're thinking too much about it. So you can't access a breakthrough whilst you're just thinking. Discovery doesn't happen in thinking. Discovery happens in the creativity of it. So whilst you're tapping with a practitioner, you don't need to do the thinking. They do the thinking for you in terms of the scripting.
Yeah.
So you're repeating after me. And then at the same time, you're relaxing your body and allowing your body to feed you the signals. And of course, you're reminded and prompted. I'll go, where's in your body? What does it look like? How does it feel like? What is it out of 10?
Yeah.
Right. And I'll be asking your subconscious to feed me the particular incident or the memory that's coming up for you. And so you're able, the body and your subconscious is able to communicate up and then bring through the content to your thinking brain. Right. And that's where we do the processing.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, look, I've kind of been saying that for a hell of a long time, and people still think that they think first and then feel. Feel and then think, and that's
exactly.
Studies and studies and studies. The given method absolutely irrefutably prove that. But it's interesting because people are like, well, how quickly does my brain? Seconds, like not even a second, it could be milliseconds, you know. Okay.
There was a statistic that in your thinking brain, you process about 40 bits per second, but the subconscious processes 40,000 bits per second. It's already done the processing before you think it.
Yep.
So
well, it's stored as well.
Versus a typewriter processor as such. Yeah.
I mean, look, the greatest computer ever created is within us, you know, like, and it's amazing. However, I love what you do because it actually is focusing on, and it speaks to me because of the work that I do as well, but because it focuses on the real memory that sits within our bodies.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Always.
So, absolutely. And that's massive. But you're right, though, you know, people are more and more wanting to do it, but there's also a huge fear because, you know, what I find is people are like, I don't know what's underneath it. Well, do I want to know? And I'm like, yes. We're both like, yes, you do want to know, because then it doesn't have to be a thing anymore. So is that kind of what a typical session would look like with you?
This is you and I talking. I'm tapping, you're tapping on yourself, right? Following me. And then in the middle of it, you're giving me feedback as to what memory is coming up or where is it in your body, and writing notes down. And then something will come to me. I might interrupt you and go, is it this or is it that? And you're like, oh, it's this, right? And so that the interaction is always like that. Now, what turns up in the session, I never know. But it's always quite beautiful and transformative. And some of them you just go, whoa, what just happened? So like even I get gobsmacked sometimes, right? So it's quite a beautiful process. And there's lots of tears. There's lots of emotion. There's lots of crying or burping, or yawning. That's really normal as well as the body releases.
Yeah.
And you have to go through it. Really, the only way is through. You can't go around it. You can't put fondant on top of it and sprinkles and make it look good and hopefully it's not noticeable. You can't. You have to go through it. And that's where the transformation, that's where the other side lies for you. Literally, the grass is greener on the other side, but how you get there is through. And that's inside a session. Yeah. You know, that's that clincher, that 10-15 minute clincher. You're just going through the memory, reliving it. I can't believe I felt that. You're feeling like a 6-year-old little girl and mum's not letting you do this, or you have to deviate or whatever it is. You're reliving all of it and it's not nice. But that's where the release is.
Yeah, look, absolutely. Absolutely. It is, but it is in that's scary in those moments.
It is. But it's either that, which is inside a 20-minute window inside a 1 hour and 15-minute session, or you just go through decades of life being okay with what you have and what you haven't got, complaining about it. You're actually okay with it.
Well, you don't know how to be another way.
They think, no, I'm not. I'm like, no, you are, because you look back 5 years, exactly the same. You are okay with it. And they don't like being told that either. And so if you don't want to be okay with it, this is the type of what you got to do.
Yeah, I often need to say that to teenage clients. That's okay if you're happy with this. If that's I'm cool. I'm good because my life's amazing. So, you know, you're okay with that? And they're like, no. Okay. If you're not. Yeah, I do. I love that, because I think I've had to be reminded of that through my own work and through my own development as well. Are you okay with what's happening? No. So then you cannot stay the same and keep doing the same things.
Yeah.
And say that you're okay.
Exactly. Yeah.
So then I want to know about the magic it creates. Tell us some of the, actually first I want to know the magic that it's created for you, like in your own personal life.
Gosh. Well, I didn't think that I would get full-time tapping in such a short amount of time. And I've somehow generated a full-time practice, and it's all online. Right? And my real stand for the work and the fulfillment that it gives me. It's more fulfillment, the currency of fulfillment, the energetic fulfillment. You know, people go, and it's hard to describe fulfillment, because as I impact one family or impact that one person, it gives them the freedom that the last 20 years has anchored them with this traumatic memory, let's just say. And then they all of a sudden have this new lease on life, and they thank me. It's just so fulfilling. It's like I'm impacting an individual's humanity. And I don't know who I'm going to impact from there because of who they are now from the session. And they'll impact their families, their clients, what have you. So it's the currency of energetic fulfillment that I get from it all the time. And I'm just forever grateful. And sometimes I'm so moved to tears for the work that I do. And I've experienced this twice. So once was when I was on staff at Landmark, because that sort of work there is just like no other. And so, and I sing praises for Landmark, because without them, I wouldn't be the person that I am now. And without them, I wouldn't be the practitioner that I am now either.
Yeah.
And in my work as a tapping practitioner, like, it's really fulfilling. So I can say that I am working my purpose, that people have looked and looked and looked, or put off and put off and put off and not found. Whereas I quit my corporate role in 2005 to go, I don't know what it is, but I'm willing to discover and look. And it's been a journey since then. Right. And now, even though I'm settled in this work now and I love it and it's flourishing and I'm generating it, I know there's the what's next. And that's why that mentoring turned up in my, I'm asking, and it turned up. I'm like, okay, this is what's next. Right. And so that's the contribution just keeps growing, which is great. So personally, it's a sense of fulfillment, which is amazing.
Yeah, I love it. I must admit, I have a lot of moments with clients where I end a session and we'll move away from my desk and I kneel on the ground. I have a gratitude moment of just like, wow, that just happened. And I love it. Like, I'm always ever surprised by the work that, you know, in the workspace that we do. And I laugh because I'm like, it's kind of like Melbourne weather, right? You know, we're always surprised by it. Yeah. Always like, oh my God, what a beautiful day today. Like, oh wow. Or, oh, did you check the rain today? I can't even believe it rained that much. Like, I love Melburnians because it's like we've never seen weather before. And then we're suddenly like surprised by what it is. Can you believe how cold it is today? Yep. And so it's
meditation in the afternoon, like yesterday. I was like, what the hell?
and I was shedding clothes. It was just funny, but like, and it's still today. And I always laugh at it and I laugh when I do it because I still do it. You know, like, oh my God, can you believe the weather from yesterday to today? Yeah, we live in Melbourne, mate. Yep, like still shocking. So it's like the work that we do. I'm still it's like that childlike wonder. I'm still always surprised by the depth and the impact that is created in those moments. And wow, like I'm always like, did that just happen? And I've even said it in client moments, like, that totally just happened. Can you believe it? Yeah. And then, you know, we're sitting there like, had no idea. And here it is, you know, and here we get to see the truth of a situation. So I do love that in the work that we both get to do is that there is always that sense of wonder and surprise.
Yes.
You know, that there's this gift of, it can be some heavy shit that's being presented. However, still when you get through, like you said, because you got to move through it, you got to feel it to heal it. You know, you can't get away with that. You have to actually feel the event or the experience or whatever it is. Yes. So I do love it, but I do liken it to Melbourne weather. Like I just love Melbournians for that. It's my absolute favourite. Absolute favourite. So anyone listening that's done a lot of personal development work or even a little bit, you know what it is. You know that surprise. You know that moment when another layer comes up and you think, seriously? Like, I dealt with all that. Well, guess you didn't. Yeah. Even in myself. So then, all right, tell me about the magic that it creates for clients.
Oh gosh. Well, with littlies, it's the parents get sleep again. Whoop, whoop. Like, and it's between 4 to 6 sessions I work with them. All of a sudden, the parents are like, it's a different child. They're in bed the whole night. Sure, every now and then I still get them coming in, but it's altered. Or I was working with this team, and she said to her mum, oh, I don't know whether it's the work that I'm doing with Fay, but I just don't give a fuck what other people think now. Right? And her mum told me, I'm just like, yes, I can't believe it. Oh gosh, what else? And I love it when I sit down and review with the clients how they were from day one versus say 2 months later that I've worked with them, and they go, oh yeah, because it's the subtle changes, because it all starts with a subtle thought. It's whether you go with that thought or not, right? And they don't respond to that thought anymore, and so all of a sudden they're not grabbing the chocolate as they go down the aisle at Woolies or Coles, or all of a sudden they're not responding the way they normally do to their child, or all of a sudden they're finding that they've backed themselves so much more and inside a conversation that's just turned up, and they find themselves really standing for themselves. And it's natural. So all that sort of feedback means that the work has worked, right? That as much as they still get anxiety, right? But it's not there to hinder them. The anxiety is there because they're human.
Oh, look, when I do with clients and the experience of anxiety, like them actually, one, stopping owning it, using ownership language, but two, understanding that every single person on the planet experiences it, that it's actually like a really natural and organic feeling that we have, and we're meant to feel it. There's messages within it, and when they can understand what those messages are in particular to themselves, then how powerful is that?
Yeah. So it's like a survival mechanism that no longer needs to survive just because of their personality or how they're programmed, versus the anxiety that's there because it's just a human function.
Yeah, I mean, look, human emotion, it's a beautiful thing if we choose to feel it in the moment that we're in.
Exactly.
So how do you use tapping in your life then?
Well, I have my own sessions once every fortnight with a practitioner.
Okay.
So I get my own sessions. So that's all the time, pretty much. When I tap with clients on a daily basis, I receive what we call borrowed benefits. Okay. So if I'm tapping with you for your issue, for what you're dealing with. I'm there for you, but at the same time, my subconscious is listening.
Oh,
So
yeah.
I'm tapping, my subconscious is literally tapping on itself for that for my variation of the same topic.
Wow.
But I'm getting the benefits in a borrowed way, not because I'm there for you, but by default, I get the benefits because I'm tapping along and working with you.
Oh, got it. So, okay, for me, from a coaching space and from a healing space, that's similar to what happens is I have to have a cleansing and disconnection ritual that I do, connecting in and connecting out, particularly with healing, and no different to coaching as well, because energetically I channel when I'm coaching. So for me, that happens. But also it's the lessons. Like I'll go through something in a week and then 2 weeks later it'll come up with a client and I think, right, oh, thanks, universe.
Yeah,
that's that experience
very often. Like I had not an altercation, it wasn't an altercation, a friendship thing that disbanded last year. And in the middle of it, I had to process it relatively quickly. And that's when I tap on myself. I'm crying, I'm upset. And I sometimes just tap on one point as I'm being upset and crying through it. And my husband about it. And then the next day, a client turns up and he's 8 and he goes, he's on the spectrum and he stems, okay? And he goes, you know, these people, they avoid me. Nobody plays with me on the playground. They run away from me. And I just think they don't like me. But some of them do, but I have to play especially there so that they like me when I play that with them. So if I want to play with them, I have to play that. And I'm just going now. And then afterwards, I'm just going, oh my heart. I had to go through that really quickly to be there for this boy. So it was really perfect timing in that way. So I do like tapping turns up in that space, in that way, like I'm the clearing. So I have to go through it quickly in order to hold that space for somebody else. I do tapping with a practitioner every fortnight. So I just continually work on myself. And I do tapping with my son. He'll only come to me when he needs to. Like Richmond's about to lose a match on footy, and he'll be like, "Mummy, I'm really nervous. I'm so scared." I'm like, "Tap." That's the only time he'll tap with me. Or he'll go, "Oh, Mummy, I saw something really scary on YouTube. Can you please tap that man out of my head?" And those are the words he uses because he knows it's in his head.
I love it.
Right? So I'm there at night with him tapping, and I go, "What does he look like? What was he doing? What do you remember about the video? Blah, 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 blah." And he tells me, and he goes, "I'm scared I'm going to have a nightmare." I'm like, "Okay, let's tap that nightmare out." And then he sleeps well. Right? So he'll only come to me for tapping when there's an emotional angst over there with him. He knows that he can use me as that resource, which is really great because he knows that then how to self-regulate by asking me to tap on him.
Oh, I love it. I love it. I love it. This has been a particularly amazing conversation. I love it because we've gone to some very different places, but I love it because it really does create a lot of magic in someone's life and the ability to, I to use the term shed, to shed and disconnect from, the emotional connection that we have to stories that are stored in our bodies. So, and EFT has such a direct line to do that, which is really amazing. And then people can sort of move forward to create new habits and create a life that they actually desire and not want to complain about.
Yeah.
So I think that's where a lot of people, and that's why I think what you're talking about, people are able to almost like have a amnesia about the past 2 years. Yeah, because they just want to sit in this complaint rather than desire.
Yeah.
So I have final 3 questions, my final 3 whats. Are you ready?
Okay. All right, go ahead.
So what is well-being to you?
Being able to function on a daily basis with your life.
Okay. I love that. What are your must-do daily wellbeing practices?
At least 30 mils of water per kilogram of your weight. So hydration is a must.
Can't even tell you how much I bang on about this all the time. I do lives.
Water time.
I've got this, it encourages me all the time, tells me to keep on going, you can do it. So I love that. I probably drink anywhere from 2-3 litres a day. I don't even know about my body weight or whatever.
Yeah, an integrative doctor said 30 mils per every kilogram of your body weight.
Right. Well, who knows? I don't even know how much I weigh because I don't have scales in the house. I don't care about what I care how I feel in my clothing and my body and all that kind of stuff. But no, I've got rid of a scale.
Yeah, but if you want a measurement, that's usually the measurement. So
right. What you weigh yourself.
Yeah, hydration. Hydration's is a no-brainer for me. Walks every couple of days. I do a walk, and then now I'm going to get back into my Bikram yoga now that I can.
Nice.
So that will be 1 to 2 times a week.
Nice one. Any other wellbeing practices? There's probably heaps, but you know, when you do them, you take them for granted. You know what I mean? Like you just kind of.
I tap on a daily basis.
Well, yeah, I love that. You're like, oh, I forgot about that one. Gold.
Seriously, the days that I don't tap, which is I sometimes work on a Saturday, but most of the times I don't, and I don't work Sundays. I find something's missing because I'm not constantly clearing myself and detoxifying myself. And I do that 5 days a week, and then all of a sudden I'm not doing that for 2 days.
I find that with meditation.
What I don't do is I don't have caffeine. I don't have coffee during the week, and I don't have alcohol on school nights. Meaning on Sunday night through to Thursday night, I don't have alcohol. That's what I don't do. And I only have coffees during weekends, and I feel the difference. I feel a lot more dehydrated. My mouth is drier. I'm a bit more agitated, a bit more shaky as well. And so I notice that now. So I might have one coffee, but it'll be a mocha or something, you know. So it's a bit more not quite diluted because it's still the same amount of coffee, right? But I don't have that much coffee anymore.
Beautiful. I love, and because wellbeing is just as much about the practices that you do every day that work for you, but also what you do,
what you don't
eliminate and let go of. I mean, I don't drink alcohol anymore at all, but I do drink coffee every day. So yeah, I get that. I absolutely get that. And my last question is, what impact does it have on your life?
The practices.
Yeah.
Clarity, groundedness, and quietness. The silence is literally golden. It's quiet. It's beautifully quiet.
I love that because it gives you the ability to think.
Yeah.
When there's not as much noise going on. Oh, that's beautiful. This has been amazing. Thank you so much for sharing your time. I've had a few ideas sparked in me about having a larger interview with some more women and talking about some wellbeing practices. And anyway, I'm going to creatively fill out that idea now that it's popped into my brain. But thank you so much for your time today. It's been absolutely magnificent. And how do people get in contact with you?
I'm on Facebook and I'm on Instagram, Living Well with Fay.
Beautiful.
And yeah, you can PM me there. I've got my links there for you to come through.
They'll be in the bio as well, so you can have a look in there and click on them and connect in with Fay and book some time with her to tap things out and away and through.
Yes.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, everyone, for sharing your time with us today. It's been magnificent. And please like, share, comment, and tell me what you want to hear and who you want me to speak to. I would love to do it. I'll see you next time on Connected Conversations. Bye for now. Connect with Fay through Fay at livingwellwithfay.com. To connect with me, head to emmamuir.com. Enjoy your day and thanks for sharing your time.